We have lots to discuss in today's video, including reviewing an article that suggests the Rangers and Sabres may be in line to be great trade partners on a blockbuster deal this offseason. We'll discuss the suggested trade and see what everybody thinks of that. Plus, we're going to also review 5 coaches facing the NHL hot seat here as the season winds down. Which coaches are most likely to possibly lose their jobs at the end of the season? Plus, we got big news regarding the agents in the NHL. One agency is being bought up by another and could really shake things up in that world. Plus, we have drama in New Jersey after the Devils' latest loss to the Ottawa Senators. And some other news as well, including a coach in college hockey who might be making his way to the NHL. All that and more coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have tons of news to get into here today, and an article I want to review regarding a potential suggested blockbuster deal for the offseason. First up, though, before we get into any news, I want to take a look at what I do every once in a while. That's on this day in NHL history, and it seems very fitting to review this, considering where things are at in NHL right now. But on this day, all the way back in 1994, the great one, Wayne Gretzky, broke the record for most goals in a career, surpassing Gordie Howe, 802 goals. Obviously, we know that Wayne Gretzky's record is in danger of being broken here by the great 8, Alex Ovechkin, which is possibly coming up here in the next little while. He's still 7 goals away, 6 to tie, 7 to break it. There's enough runway here left in the NHL season that it is possible. It could happen, most likely, barring some kind of crazy run here by Ovi, most likely sometime in April before the season's over. If he falls a little short, he's still going to be around next year, and it'll happen then. But at the end of the day here, this is one of the biggest records that is going to be broken in a long time, and it was broken the last time on this day back in 94. Big news as well, as I mentioned, in the world of agency and agents here in the NHL. According to Frank Saravalli, NHL insider agent Kurt Overhart, who owns KO Sports, has begun informing clients that they're being acquired by Wasserman. Of course, Kurt Overhart has, I think, over 30-some clients in the NHL, plus there's other agents that work with him. I do believe a couple of his agents are going out on their own. Not the entire staff is going with them to Wasserman, but the bulk of the contracts and staff will be doing so. Of course, Wasserman, one of the not the biggest outlet amongst the NHL agencies. That title likely goes to Pat Brisson and CAA, but Wasserman's pretty big. They do have some of the biggest clients in the NHL, including Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews. So KO Sports, Kurt Overhart will continue to do business like normal, except they will now be part of Wasserman here once that deal is closed and finalized. Some other roster moves, injury updates around the league here. In St. Louis, we saw Dalibor Dvorsky, they're on their first-round pick, top prospect, make his NHL debut today, which was great. The Blues continue to be on a hot streak here as they do battle trying to get themselves in that final playoff spot, kind of giving people a little bit of vibes back in the 18-19 season when they went on a crazy run, except their run started much sooner when they went on to win the Stanley Cup. So we will see what happens here. The Blues, they're doing well. They're doing their part to get that spot. They're still battling with the Flames and the Canucks and to some degree Utah as well. The Blues have played more games though, so the odds are still against them, even though they do have a great winning streak here on the go. But Dvorsky played well. Nick Leddy was out today. Matthew Kessel jumped in the lineup, and the Blues will continue to fight for that last spot. Of course, they've done much better since Jim Montgomery became the head coach earlier this year after he was let go in Boston once they knew he wasn't going to be re-signing, and certainly there was a disagreement of philosophies and whatnot between the Bruins management and Montgomery. There was clear that things weren't going to get resolved. In Minnesota, they've recalled Liam Ogren and Cam Crotty on emergency basis as well. The Canucks also recalled Atu Ratu, and the Red Wings have resent back Brogan Rafferty, who was recalled on emergency basis to the Wings. He's been sent back to the American Hockey League, which tells us that appears Jeff Petrie ready to return, so they don't no longer need an extra body up there from the American Hockey League. So as I mentioned, we get some interesting playoff battles going on. Of course, we talked about the West and the Eastern Conference. We've got right now the Senators and the Canadiens holding down wild cards 1 and 2. There's still some heat coming from behind them, trying to take those spots from the Islanders, Rangers, to some degree, the Jackets and the Red Wings, although they've fallen a little bit further behind here. Right now, I think the odds are very favorable for Ottawa and Montreal to both hold down those spots and both get in, but like I said, they've got work to do. And of course, we saw some drama in Jersey last night. Of course, the Senators were doing battle with the New Jersey Devils. The Senators picked up the much-needed win. They had lost the previous 2 games, so they snapped their little mini slide there and get hopefully back on a new run to kind of solidify their spot. They go on to play the Sabres, the Red Wings, and the Jackets and the Penguins next. So they do have a pretty favorable schedule if they can beat the teams that they should be beating, which are like all below them in the standings. But regardless of that, the interesting part, New Jersey hasn't had the greatest run as of late. Of course, they are missing some key bodies with Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton, both out long-term. So I understand that they're shorthanded and missing some star players. But certainly saw... I think it's starting to get to them a little bit. Sheldon Keefe was quite snappy last night. So after the loss, media had interviewed players first, and they were talking to defenseman Jonathan Kovacevic in the locker room. And one of the things he said, which seemed like a fine quote to me, there was nothing wrong at all with what he said, just that as the team goes down this final stretch here, that they need to have that approach mentality of, treating every game kind of like a playoff game and just kind of, taking care of business in that sense. Just making sure they understand the importance of each and every game. Some teams, you can understand, might get a little comfortable in their spot in the standings, and I'm not sure that New Jersey's really feeling that. I honestly think it's really just boils down to the fact that they've got some key injuries with Hughes and Hamilton. Jacob Markstrom's been a little off lately as well, and just how things haven't been going the greatest. Now, the other thing, too, that kind of caused the drama is the reporters, one of them actually, when talking to Sheldon Keefe afterwards, brings up Kovacevic's comment and starts to say what Kovacevic had to say to the reporters. And Sheldon Keefe, quite snappy, cut off the reporter. He says, Kovacevic needs to play better. That would help. And then it kind of stunned everybody, and then he walks off from the podium. So, yeah, has Kovacevic had a few rough games lately? Sure. Is he the only one? No. Just seemed like a kind of a short moment. I'm sure Keefe is frustrated with, like I said, the way things have been going lately, but that's not going to help matters at all. Be curious to see how things continue to go there. Just a dramatic moment, something you don't see a lot. But in all fairness, I kind of think the approach that he should have taken would have been, I don't really know exactly what the player had to say. Maybe I'll listen to his comments later and I'll get back to you. Or something like that. He could have just left it at that, or just had a no comment or something along those lines instead of being so snappy. It's just not good. So be curious just to monitor things in New Jersey and see if that drama continues to weigh in and have any effect on them. And as I mentioned in the opener, we're going to get into some coaches facing the hot seat here as the regular season starts to wind down and kind of hit the home stretch here soon. But before we get into that, there was some big news in the college world of coaching, and that's University of North Dakota head coach Brad Berry has been relieved of his duties. He's had a heck of a run at UND, a decade plus there. He played there, so of course as an alumni, as a player. He was an assistant coach, which that school tends to you go on as an assistant, and then you get hired as a head coach. It's pretty much like a all in the family type of approach, if you will. But Brad Berry's had a heck of a run. He's produced a lot of NHL players. I know the Senators have drafted a ton of them. At one point, like a lot of people used to joke that they were the Nodak Sens. You're looking at players like, Shane Pinto, Jacob Bernard-Docker, Jake Sanderson, Tyler Clevin. All these guys all played together in college and all had great runs there. And some of the teams that he had, especially like in 21, 22, some of the greatest teams that the school's ever produced. Obviously, at one point won a national championship there as well early in his tenure. He's accomplished a lot. He's in between. He's kind of been back and forth a little bit as well. Of course, before Brad Berry, the head coach there was Dave Haxtell, and during Haxtell's run, Berry actually had left briefly. He spent a little time in the American Hockey League, and he did briefly work as an assistant coach in the NHL with Columbus too. So there's lots of experience there, with some brief experience in the as an assistant in the NHL. So I do wonder if Brad Berry could find himself as a candidate that NHL teams are going to maybe be keeping on their radar, especially some of the teams that we are going to talk about here in a moment that might be looking for a coaching change, or Bradbury may find himself as a prime candidate for an NHL assistant coaching role next year. We'll have to see. Like I said, he's had a great run in college, and he's already got a little bit of experience in the AHL and NHL, so I think he's prime for that next step, since the school's going in a different direction. They just figured, based on, they said that, they had lots of complimentary things to say about Barry and his tenure and his run there. Just they felt that after the last couple of years, how the success wasn't quite at the level that they had in 21, 22, and even before that, that it might be time just to go in a different direction and let somebody else have a run as the head coach there. So we'll see. Bradbury, somebody to watch in coaching circles as changes become more obvious here as the season comes to a close. Now, as I mentioned, I want to take a look at what I'm calling 5 NHL coaches on the hot seat that we might see let go. Typically, a lot of teams, for the non-playoff teams as well, if looking at the 16 teams that are going to be into off-season mode here in just a short spell, which I know sometimes is still getting a few comments on the channel saying, why are we talking about trade rumors? Are we talking about this and that? Why? I'm like, yeah, because half the league is going to be in off-season mode in a very short stretch, less than a month away now. You've only got 3 to 4 weeks left in their NHL regular season. By the third week of April, the season's over. Half the league's in off-season mode, and all we're going to be hearing about from those teams are what changes they're going to make, who might not get re-signed, who might get traded, if they're going to be making a coaching change. It's just going to be rumor central on those 20 or those 16 teams. So we're getting ahead of it a little bit and just kind of speculating because we already know who some of those teams are going to be. So, anyways, I just continue to get these. They're not as many, but some weird comments in that regard. So, coaches on the hot seat. One, I think we're going to see changes continue to be further in Boston. Of course, we know they moved on from Montgomery. I think that was, like I said, mostly fueled by the fact that there were philosophical differences between Montgomery and management, and it became clear that his contract negotiation wasn't going well and that he wasn't going to be re-signed. So they decided to let go of him sooner and go with Joe Sacco, who's a long-time tenured NHL assistant coach, but the team has not seen improvements. They're further lower in the standings, and to be honest, I don't think that the team is I don't think they're gonna be holding it against them too badly, because really they traded away a lot of talent. We saw them trade Captain Brad Marchand, we saw them trade Brandon Carlo, Charlie Coyle. Like, they really shook the roster up. Trent Frederick went off to Edmonton. It's a different looking Bruins team here for sure. Brazo, another one, went out the door. Like, they traded 5-6 guys. Like, it's and some important pieces that have been there a long time. So, I'm not sure that they were really expecting down the stretch here much more when they made those moves at the deadline. But I don't know that Sacco has really proven that he's the guy. So the belief is around the NHL that Sacco still might remain with the Bruins. It's possible that because he's been there a while, that they do like and respect him, but maybe see him being better suited and served as an assistant coach, and that they will likely look outside the organization for a new head coach. So I do think we're going to see changes there. That's assuming that Sweeney and Neely are retained. And based on the fact of what we've seen coming down the stretch, I don't think we have any reason to think at this point that we're going to see a big change in the front office there. I don't think they would have been allowed to handle all that deadline business and all those veteran moves if they weren't going to be back. At least I wouldn't think. But we will see. I do expect at least a coaching change in Boston. And Pittsburgh, you have to wonder about the future of Mike Sullivan. Now, I also think it's a possibility that he stays. I know he's got a long-term contract. I'm not sure exactly how many years are left on it. A lot of that stuff's not as public as player contracts. We know the Penguins have continued to say the right things to support him. They know the roster's not his fault, right? But we're going on 3 consecutive years now of no playoffs. It's been a long time before that since they even won a playoff series. He's been there over a decade, long time. Is it time for a new voice? We know there's going to be more changes. Obviously, Kyle Dubas has his work cut out for him. He tried a lot last year to shake up this team and to kind of see if he could be competitive with the remaining years of Crosby, Malcolm, Letang after bringing all those guys back and getting Crosby re-signed and all that. But it's been another bad year, near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. So you got to wonder about the future of Sullivan. It's just time to move on. If he is let go at Pittsburgh, or they come to like a mutual agreement. I mean, they have a lot of respect for Sully there, so I don't know if they're going to fire him. I think it would be a case of talking to him about, is it time for a change? And, it would be a mutually agreed to part ways type of scenario. But if he does get let go, then he's the guy in Boston. We know there's links there. Obviously, he's a Boston guy. Father-in-law to Charlie McAvoy, which doesn't play a big role, but I'm sure they'd love to work together. And really, I think that there's already a lot of respect there, and it just makes sense to me. It's a good fit. So I say if Sullivan decides to move on from Pittsburgh, that he goes to Boston. But either way, I wouldn't be shocked to see both teams with a new coach next year. Nashville, I do wonder about Andrew Brunette. At the same time, I know Barry Trotz is just as much to blame, if not more, for that roster. A lot of the moves he made in the offseason look good, but have not worked out. And this is a team that is way further down the standings than they ever planned or expected to be. Last year, they went on a good run at the end of the year, to finish strong. This year, they did not. And then in the offseason, we saw them make all these big moves. Look at the money they spent. Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, and then it just hasn't worked out. This team is, awful in many ways. So, is it Brunette's fault? No. Is he a good coach? I think he is. I know that he and Trotz have a long historic relationship here. They were known each other for so long. Of course, Trotz coached Brunette back in the day. So I don't know that he's going to want to move on that quickly. I think Trotz was smart enough to know that it's probably not his fault, but you have to think they have to consider it at least, given the circumstances of the roster. The Rangers, I think they're a prime candidate as well. I'm not sure that Laviolette's going to be back. I think Peter Laviolette might have kind of run his course with the Rangers. I know that looking just down the stretch, there's been a lot of games where they just look lifeless, and to me, this looks like there's not a lot of interest there to really push. I think we're going to see other changes as well. I think we're going to see at least a few one or two prominent players maybe get moved out. Like I said, I do wonder about Chris Kreider. I wonder about Keandre Miller. And there's a few others too that wouldn't be shocking to some degree. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Chris Drury's made it pretty clear he wants to continue making changes, and I think behind the bench is going to be a prime candidate. If they're going to kind of shake up that roster further, going with a coaching change to me does make sense there. And of course, we talked before about Buffalo and potential changes coming between Ruff and Adams. I think, to be honest, I don't think anybody in Buffalo is safe. As I reported yesterday, their owner, Terry Pegula, is on the current road trip, kind of analyzing everything. So I do wonder if we could see big change. Again, I don't know that it's really Lindy Ruff's fault. I think the roster construction and player development has played a big role in their shortcomings. But at the same time, is Ruff the right guy? Could they find a better coach if they're going to have to go in a new direction here? That's why I'm really curious to see what Buffalo does. I know they want to win right now, that they need to switch gears and find a way to do it quickly so they can go from where they are to, trying to get in the playoffs. But look at where they are in the standings. It's not easy moving up. We saw progress the last couple of years. They didn't get in the playoffs, but they were getting better. They were getting closer. And then they really just crapped the bed this year. It really took a big step back. A lot of teams to jump over to go from where they are into being one of those teams like Ottawa and Montreal battling for a wild card spots. There's just so much to, that's a massive improvement year over year. So, I don't know. I do expect big things and big changes in Buffalo, and which the trade we're going to talk about involves Buffalo. And I do wonder about Lindy Ruff and his potential future there, and a couple other ones as well. I do wonder about Philly and John Tortorella. There's some that think maybe that his approach is kind of wearing on some of the younger players. Are they ready to take a step next year, and do they think a different coach might be helpful? I do wonder there. In Chicago, Anders Sorensen, who was appointed interim head coach after Luke Richardson was let go, is he going to be back? I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that they deserve, like in Sorensen's case, it's not a great roster. I don't think a lot was expected of him, but the main thing is just that, do they feel he's the right guy? I'm not sure how they feel about all that. So that's a possibility. Torts, though, he's got a shelf life. There's a reason for it. Something maybe he wants to get into management as well. Could he maybe stay with the Flyers but take a different role? We'll have to see. But all those coaches to some degree have a lot of pressure on them. And as I mentioned, could we see a blockbuster deal between the Rangers and Sabres? came across an article. This was Flu Bleacher Report, and I'll share it in the pinned comment so you can review it yourself. But the Rangers and Sabres are two teams that have a ton of rumors and speculation about what they're going to do in the offseason. We've heard about Rasmus Dahlin. Now, of course, there was some speculation he wanted out, and I know he's clarified that, and even Elliotte Friedman has confirmed those details as well. That the belief is that Dahlin did meet with management. That part appeared to be true, but he didn't say, I want out. He's just really concerned about the future of the franchise. Now, but like I said, if the team is facing significant changes, new direction, are they going to make further trades involving that core? What group do they see moving forward? How fast can they kind of shake things up? If they were to consider trading Dahlin, this article kind of reviews some of the top teams that they felt make sense for him. And the Rangers were one. And could we see two former first overall picks involved in a blockbuster deal? Would the Rangers want to consider Lafreniere, who signed a big deal and has taken a step back? It wouldn't be one for one. It would have to be more pieces here. But could we see a package that would start with a Dahlin and Lafreniere swapping spots here? We know the Sabres very well could trade one of their more prominent defensemen. I think either Bo Byram gets signed and stays, or Bo Byram gets traded. I mean, but between Power, Dahlin, and Byram, I don't think all three are back next year. I think one of them probably gets moved. The Rangers were also the team that was poking around Peterka near the deadline. Now, we know that the asking price was so high that it never happened. And I'm not sure it will, but we know they've had conversations. I wonder what other players' names were brought up. Peterka, if I'm Buffalo, Peterka's a player that I'm going to probably try to sign to it because he's an RFA, that I would try to get to a longer-term deal. I really think he's a part of the solution there. I'd be careful with trading him, but he's also a player that would have big value. So it depends on what the potential return could be, right? You have to factor all that in. But we know the Rangers, another player to watch there is K'Andre Miller. I don't think that the Rangers are going to want to pay him. He's an RFA coming up as well. His qualifying offers around $4.65, so $4.65 million on a longer-term deal outside of a bridge. He's probably looking at $6+ million, and I just don't know that the Rangers are going to have an appetite for that. Now, I'm not sure the Sabres will. Maybe they do. Could there be a multiple-player big deal here that could see, Lafreniere and Miller, maybe Dahlin and something else? I'm not sure what that would have to be, but, there's certainly lots. I know Jack Quinn's a name to watch, too. I don't know that, he recently missed, I think he missed a meeting or something. He had some kind of team punishment, I know, from Lindy Ruff for something. I think it was missing a meeting. But again, a player who's been in and out of the rumor mill, somebody who, they wondered, is he the guy that gets moved? I mean, he's had his moments where he's looked really good. He's battled a lot of injuries. I know him and his former junior teammate, Marco Rossi, were drafted, I believe, if memory serves. They went back-to-back. Look at what Rossi's doing in Minnesota now, putting up some pretty solid numbers, where Quinn's kind of still middling here in Buffalo. So, that's just a potential framework of a large deal. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not entirely convinced Dahlin gets moved, but I do think that the Sabres are poised to make a significant move of some sort. And certainly, with all the rumors around him, if they want to really shake things up, that would be a way to do it. And just a fun thought to look at, potential, two former first overall picks involved in the same kind of blockbuster deal. It's an interesting thought. Let me know what pieces you think would have to be involved from both sides for it to make sense. Depending on what side you're on, let me know if you think, would you pull the trigger on that deal as well? And we'll talk about it further in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.